Yes, now, and welcome to episode 73 of the Top Loaded podcast. But rather than numbers this week, this is our Women's World Cup special where we're talking to two members of the women's collecting community. One person who's an avid collector of all things women's cards, and the other, another big collector, but also been groundbreaking table at the London Card Show. So we'll be talking to them, learning more about the hobby, hoping to get more people involved in it. Obviously, it's currently the Women's World Cup at the moment. England have won their first game, which is fantastic. Hope everyone's enjoying the early morning games. But most importantly, let's get straight into this episode. But before I do get into this episode, if anyone wants custom stands or any other good stuff, head over to thirddown.co.uk and use TTP10 for 10% off anything. That is TTP10 for custom stands. So at the moment, you'll be able to get stands from £9 all the way up. So go over there and head over and get your discount. But most importantly, enjoy the episode. And joining us next on the Top Loader podcast, and it's a very, very special episode, obviously, this one being our Women's World Cup special. Joining me now is a fellow Arsenal women's collector who steals all of my cards, but we had to get another fellow collector on to talk all things women's football. So, Erin, welcome to the Top Loader podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
No, very good. Obviously, we spoke briefly in the past when you was completing some sets, but it seems now that women's football cards and naturally with men's football, I just go cards, but with women's, we really have to emphasize the sticker part because that's still quite a big aspect. So in the last, say, 12 months since the Crow League, I feel like it's been picking up quite a bit, the women's side. It's still not where it should be, but it's getting a lot better.
Yeah, there's a lot more sets. They're being included a lot more. They're doing a lot of split men and women's sets, which is getting the hype out there. It's getting more women's cards out there. There's been more sticker sets. So you've got the release of the World Cup sticker set, which is taken off, and you had the digital album as well, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, that was very good.
It was trying to get all the gold stickers. I was like,
I think the best thing about that digital one is you didn't have to walk down to the shop and spend your money on the packs, because that is the dangerous part of them stickers, because you go in and go, I'll get 2 packs. Actually, I'm here, I might as well get 5. And then the guy goes, there's only 10 left in the box. Oh, well,
I went to my corner shop yesterday, and I don't know if the guy put it wrong or if my maths was wrong, but I think they were selling them for only like 15p a pack. So I was like, clearly, I need to go back to that shop more.
Yeah, I think you could be a little money maker on there. Get some of them graded, get them off. Even get some of them signed. You never know. That's what that'd be the dream. But obviously, another sticker set they were in as well, and people might not have really know. So I think it went a bit under the radar. Was the One England set, which I thought was a fantastic idea, where it combined legends, women's, men's, and youth teams. Obviously, coming off the back of the UEFA Under-21 win. It's brilliant to see there, and having the focus, especially a lot around the stickers, that obviously winning the Euros for the women's, that a lot of them moments have been capitalized in stickers. And some of them, I don't think I've seen anyone anywhere else really collect them. And there's some fantastic looking stickers in that set.
Yeah, I think we only got about 2 packs of those, so we didn't get many. But it was nice. It was a lot like with the Best of England sets. I know they're cards. It was nice to see the whole of England being celebrated rather than just the men's team or the men's legends. It would have been nice to have some women autos in the set, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I think it's definitely one of them that we spoke briefly before coming on, and it's raising the knowledge with Panini. Obviously, for them being an American-based company, especially when they're doing the sets, that everyone will know from buying into breaks like Obsidian and other stuff like that, that the US women's spot is always a big spot. They've always got great cards in there. But there is other female sides in world football apart from the US. Don't get me wrong, they are very good. But also, you're looking at Obsidian. I was looking at when it first came out, like Trinity Rodman, for example, fantastic young player. But I still think they're missing the opportunity, even if they done a handful of cards. For example, like Leah Williamson's going to be a popular collector, but then it's not even that. You look at some players around the world. Sam Kerr is recognised around the world. Even someone like a Marta, for example, just doesn't have anything because Brazil's not really in many sets. Do you think it's going to be a case of someone at Panini at one point is going to have to realise that it's not all, there is more collectors out there than just the stateside?
Yeah, because you would think as well with Patelis being Ballon d'Or winner, she's the one to get. She's the player. She's the best, well, she's arguably the best player in the world. And yet, even I feel like she's underrepresented in card sets. And you see her base auto from this Barcelona set isn't selling for less than £100. Like, she's a big hype, and I don't think they realise yet. It is very American based, and I appreciate that America is big. They're a huge team. They're the dominant. They're the ones to beat. But you've got so they do the park side, and they've got their own NWSL sets. And at some point, hopefully, we'll start getting WSL sets, and then it will just pick up. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I wouldn't even mind if there was a spot like they can have their US women's national team spot, but then even if it was like a women's miscellaneous spot where it's even one or two players from each country, because you look at Australia, Sam Kerr would be massively collective, Caitlin Ford, even Steph Catley, for example, just to name a couple from there. You look around Europe, obviously, Viviana Miedemov, you got for Netherlands, Batalas for Spain, but now there's such a rising amount of players. And even when you look at African continent, Shola, for example, is a massively collected player that you've got these players that are going for good money. And like you say, with the release of the Barcelona Chrome having women's in that, which was fantastically done, in my opinion, seems like on average, it's a men's auto and a women's auto per every box. So, and that obviously brings the hype up about it because Kira Walsh obviously in it, which is fantastic. But you got people who don't collect women's football at all. They buy a box of it, see the cards, and be like, oh, actually, I might collect Lucy Bronze or Kira Walsh. So, whereas obviously Panini have their reasons, but it seems like I've got to give them credit. I have on this podcast slaughtered them before, but Topps have done wonders for women's football in the hobby. I think they're the forerunners of it, bringing us women's Chrome, Topps Nows, all of the on-demand sets that they are doing fantastic work for us collectors, giving us cards, but also raising the hype around the game because, like I say, there's like I was saying, Patallison Chrome is a brilliant example of a card that is, if you can even get a numbered version of it, congratulations. But the prices of them are why she is a double Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, exactly. It is the card to get at the moment, and I think especially with the World Cup coming up, you see. So I managed to snatch a Kira Walsh also out of 99 from the set. I was like, I can't let that one go. But you see like even in the Facebook groups, people buy the cards. You can see, I don't think people realize, well, they know you can, but you can see how much they buy them for on eBay. And then a day later, it's in the Facebook group for double the price. And I'm like, we can see how much you brought that for. Like, don't buy it to sell it for even more. I mean, it's helping the market, but it's not helpful for the buyers.
I know, I was going to say, I think that's the one great thing about the community goes around. It's a very much of a tight-knit community, especially within the UK for women's collectors, but it's one of them that everyone looks out for each other, and it's just a friendly group as well because there's not as many people in it. There's not as much to collect, so you're all helping each other out. And I know I've got to talk about, obviously, everyone renowns one of the best women's sets of all time as the Champions League Chrome, which we are hoping there's another one coming out, but you have recently completed the full base set of that, which was a very big achievement. So just talk through it, like how, like obviously in the beginning, why for the whole base set of that one, but also there's a few cases in that which must have took some time.
It was. So I remember when the set came out, we were in America, and I saw my mum and sister brought a box because we went to one of the card shops. And they opened it and they got in out of 25 Tobin Heath Flags of Foundation. So I was like, oh, that's actually quite nice. I think I want some of that. So I brought myself a box. So I got a Millie Bright auto. So I thought, it's nice. I know who she is. That's a nice start. So I wasn't really into women's football much. And then we came back to the UK and we went to the Women's Euros final. And I was like, yeah, I think I need more women's cards. I think this is what I want to do. I was like, let's sell all my men's and let's use that money to buy more women's cards. And so I went to the London card show and I picked up a hobby box, and I paid like £2.25 for it or something. And then I saw it on another table for £1.50. Or no, it mustn't have been £1.50. It must have been like £1.75. And I was so annoyed at myself. I was like, if I had just been patient and walked around the entire show, I would have seen that box for £1.75 and I wouldn't have paid £50 more. I was like, it is what it is. I've just got to bite the bullet and take it home. I did debate buying both boxes. I thought, well, let's just, it is what it is. And then we came back to the office, and Jake and Jordan were opening their own boxes, and I was like, I'm just going to sit in the corner, open my own box, do my own thing. And I opened one pack and I had a Sam Kerr parallel, and it was green. And I was like, it was only my second box, so I didn't know much about it. I hadn't really looked into the set. So I was like, oh, green, that means it's numbered. So I turned it over to look at what number it was. And I had a Beth Mead out of 75 also underneath. So I was like, amazing. And I think that's what made me fall in love with the set. My pack luck. I was like, that's it. And then in my last pack, I had a Lauren James auto. So I was like, doesn't get any better than this, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's such a high, but especially the 75. For people who don't know, it's the Inferno parallel, which I think is probably in my top two. I think with Gold Prism, favorite parallels at all. I'm trying to collect all the art. It's just a great looking set. And for people who don't know, for example, Chrome at the moment, which has come out for the men's football, the top parallel is 399, whereas for women's the top one was 150, but then it wasn't like a 125 after that. It was then 99, 75, 50, 25, 10, 5 and 1. So the amount of print run on it was crazy to think now. That lucky enough I got a few from Tops when they released, but I'm now, if you find one, it's like gold dust. And it's even the same now for single. It's really weird when you talk about singles, especially for the men's game, that it's just an abundance. But there's, especially the parallels, I know you can test about this one. If you miss out on one, there's potential that you'll never see it again, because they're just, collectors are buying them and then just sitting on them or putting them in the collection, and then they're just gone forever.
Exactly. So I'd completed the entire set. So I've got all the autos. I had every single card. The only card I had left to get was the Asllani Fierce. I was like, it's got to be somewhere. Someone has to be selling it. No one in Facebook. Well, someone in a Facebook group had it, and they wanted to do a trade for another card, but I didn't want to let go of that card in a trade. So I was like, no, sorry, it's not happening. And then I found a PSA 10 on eBay on Saturday. And I was like, I don't care the price. I need it. I was like, it's my last card. I can't say no. I can't try and offer too low. I just need it. But now I have completed every single one. I even have duplicates of some autos, so I'm trying to sell them. I'm like, I don't really need. I think I've got like 4 Miedemars. I'm like, do I need 4? Probably not. I was like, she's
can't have too much fib. Can't have too much fib.
No, exactly. I was like, she's one to sit on, but she's not at the World Cup, so it's going to be a long wait. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've got exactly the same problem at the moment, and it gets to a point where, as well, what you got to remember is, I always think of the prices about 8 months ago, before it started going up in price. I'm like, right, I really need a Katie McCabe Fierce, and there was one for once for like $45, I think, dollars it was, and I was like, no, I'll get that cheaper than that. To this day, I still haven't seen another one appear in 8 months. Luckily, I've sourced one now at the London Card Show, so that will be entering the collection and going straight off to PSA. But it's just crazy.
I'm convinced.
So, there we go. Look, so this is absolute groundbreaking stuff. So, but the thing is, with Katie McCabe, for people who don't know, Irish captain, gone to the World Cup for the first ever Ireland appearance, but also only had the case hit. So no base cards, no other inserts. So it was just the case. And that was the problem what we have in that set, was because it was such restricted numbers, especially when you're trying to chase a rookie now, it's very hard to find certain players' cards. I was trying to find some Steph Catley stuff, and the Australian market is up there, the US, in terms of actual women's collectors. So you can't find much first time, and it's notoriously quite expensive as well.
Yeah, it's I'm just looking. I actually think I brought that Katie McCabe.
Oh, there we go.
I think I got that one.
That's funny. See, look, it's such a small world, the women's collectors world, that if I don't buy it, I probably will know the person who has done it. And I think it's a perfect interlude now. Obviously, as of recording this week of the Women's World Cup, it's going to be a load of early mornings and not doing work basically for the whole time. I was looking at the other day, there's 3 a.m. kickoffs and all that, but the massive news that went along with it is there will be a Women's World Cup Donruss set, which is going to be the first standalone Panini women's collection, especially for World Cups, which is fantastic to see. Obviously, checklists are still going to be coming out a lot nearer the time, and we do expect for that the bigger nations to get a bit more of a checklist, and maybe some of the smaller nations, so to speak, be a shortened one. But it's fantastic to have another women's set to look forward to, and an iconic set like Donruss. I would arguably say it's Donruss and Prism for Panini as the two most iconic ones. So
Yeah,
it's going to be an expensive period in it trying to buy some of them cards.
it is. Yeah, I think especially with, there were rumors that the new Chrome set will be coming out within the next couple of months. So with that one on top, it's going to be expensive. And I promised myself, I've always wanted to open a case. I've always said that is the dream, a card collector's dream, is to open a case. So my boyfriend opened a case of the Topps Chrome Meta Zoo. So I was like, right, if you can do that, I can open a case of the new Women's Topps Chrome. So that is the goal. But I thought I would have had longer to save. Yeah, it will be interesting with the Donruss set. So obviously it's based off the World Cup, but like we saw with the World Cup stickers, you still had players that weren't going, like Frank Kirby, Leah Williamson, Beth Mead. It'll be interesting to see if they'll be in Donruss, or if Donruss waited until the squad list came out. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they're going to go off the hype for players or who's playing.
Yeah, which would be interesting as well. As I was thinking about the other day, that especially with there's so much women's stuff now, that they're going to have to contact more people, hopefully for autos, which opens the door long run. That they're not going to. I'd highly doubt they'd go, look, we just need your autographs one set. It might open the door for future sets to be released. Like I think Women's Chronicles could be absolutely fantastic. For example, we can all dream, put it that way. We can all dream, but it's now a case of if this opens the door for women's stuff. Whereas before it's, oh, have you got her rookie sticker? That's pretty much what you was asking for a long period of time. Obviously now there's some cards, but being a World Cup, there'd be so many players that are up and coming, or even legends that had nothing before card related, that there'd be something really good and tangible to chase. Like I could only imagine how much a Marta Gold, for example, would go for. Like it's going to be an exciting time for a women's collector just to see that checklist, or what case it's, because it's going to be downtowns, or I think it's downtowns that has been confirmed. Like, who did they put for England for that? It'd be great.
It will be, and it'll be interesting as well, because obviously it's going to be a lot of players last World Cups. Like it's Rapinoe's, so it'll be her last. Not probably, I wouldn't say it'll be her last ever card, but it'll be her last card as a player. Like, so those ones will be quite big. I reckon it'll be Alex Morgan's last World Cup, but I don't think they'll confirm that.
As I say, for people who don't know, it's the US women's national team's in a space at the moment where you've got the young coming through, and it's the older players who have been around for 4 World Cups, 3 Olympics, and everything else, that they are coming to the end of their career. And like I said, they have got a lot of cards already, and lucky enough for them, they were in Donruss already. But like you say, to be that women's national set, to have the stamp on it of the World Cup, is going to be so much more desirable, some of these cards. And we're going to be chasing some of the same players, no doubt. For example, for an Arsenal collector, Russo, who's just signed for us, has only got stickers in 1 England and the World Cup. Got no card, and fantastic that her first card's not going to be in a Man United shirt. Obviously, anyone Man United listen to this, they might have a disagreement. I don't care. Her first card could potentially be England.
That's it. We all knew it was coming. We all had the Twitter notifications waiting for the announcement.
But yeah, I think obviously after, like I said, with Russo, it's another special occasion of a young England player who's not necessarily actually young, not like we're talking of an 18, 19-year-old player, of done massive things at the Euros, was nominated for Puskas Gold of the Year, has no cards. It's just mental. But it's turning our attention now just to like the future of women's card collecting, because I think there's a big future there, especially as we briefly mentioned for the actual WSL, because there's nothing. So obviously our dream is a women's set of some sort. It'd be a lovely one, even like an instant set, like a Topps Now or Panini Instant, or a sticker book or a card set. But surely it's got to come to a point now where someone's got to buy the rights to the WSL.
They had to, like we were talking about, we were saying just before the podcast, there's only 10 teams in the league. How it can't be that difficult. It's not going to be a massive set. It's not, you don't want a set like the Prem where they're just churning out a new set every week. It's because at the moment I feel like personally I'm in the phase where I want to buy every single women's card there is out there, and I want it to get to the point where there's so many I physically can't. Like, I want them to get that recognition, to get that, to grow that much. But yeah, it will have to get there at some point. It's just a matter of when. I think it's a matter of when, not if. But
I 100% agree. I think how women's football is not just going in this country, because it's the exponential rate at the moment. Obviously, we've gone from Bournemouth, for example, Arsenal selling out just about at 2,000, 2,500 to selling out 60,000. But even the common consensus across the league of attendances being up across Europe, I think the likes of Barcelona are really helping them selling out the Camp Nou, and women's finals now selling out. That someone at one point, one of Panini and Topps, obviously Topps have the licensing for the Women's Champions League, but one of them's going to look and be like, there's a massive opening here, especially Panini having so many England national team rights, having Premier League rights. It's obviously fanatics and over, but someone's got to at one point go, you know what, WSL needs its own step, because you're going to get people like Williamson who people want to collect. And like I say, if you're collecting Bukayo Saka, for example, you can go, actually, I don't want Topps Chrome. I'll just wait for the next Prism. But for us, you see a women's card and you're like,
I need that.
Yeah, I need that one, because I don't know when the next card is. And that's the sad thing of it is, lucky enough, there's a couple sets, even like the stickers. The sticker set is a massive release in the women's world. And I've got stacks on stacks, literally stacks on stacks around my room, trying to sort them out, whether to get them graded or not. But it's moving in the right direction. And I think obviously Euro success has helped, but also now at card shows, I remember going to a few, and I no doubt you agree in a second, that it was a needle in a haystack. You're trying to find that 1, 2 women's card. Now you might see 15, 20, which is a lot better. But especially coming up in the next London card, there's going to be a whole table for women's football, and it just shows you how good it's going.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited for the table. I think I've met the woman once or twice, and she's lovely. And I think she's pushed the card, she's pushed the whole thing. She's gone to every card show. You always see her. She's always looking for women's cards. But yeah, it would be like, I think the last London card show I went to, I spoke to one person about women's cards, and he went, oh, there are some on a table over there. So you'd be running off over there to try and find them. I think it was your table. I think you had the Lucy Bronze. And I was like, yeah.
I was at a table, and I think you come over. I was at, because I was just like a moth to a flame. I was just like, oh, there's women's cards. Let me just go. It's just, you hear it. Someone else, oh, there's women's cards over there. It was like one of these cards. My mate went, do you know there's a Beth Mead over there? And I was like, I literally pegged it across the room.
There's a guy, I can't think what he's called. I think his name is Ben or something. And I think he's based in Brighton.
Oh, Ben Hatley.
He always has so many women's cards. I always go to his table, and I feel like the first show he had loads and I brought some. The second show, I feel like I just brought more of what was there at the first show. Because I'm like, if I space it out, it's fine. It's not spending as much money. But every show, I do try and buy something. Because he's got PSA slabs. I think I managed to get a Tobin Heath PSA 10 off him last time. And it's always so nice to see. And it's nice to see them mixed in with everything else. But yeah,
and especially now you're going to have people who see Williamson or Mead and they're actually pick them up and be like, oh, actually, I might buy this. But then we're just hoping, obviously, the Women's World Cup finishes a week prior to the London Card Show, that there's going to be a few more people that just go, oh, you know what, I really enjoyed watching however well England will do or whatever team they watch, and just be like, you know what, I'm going to pick up a few cards, even graded stickers or something, that by this time next year, hopefully we're having exactly the same conversation, and it's, oh, we've had 10 sets this year or 5 sets or whatever it is, and the Women's Champions League stuff keeps growing, and it's just going to be one of them that it's such an infancy stage that you realistically, for everyone outside the States, you're in the first year still. So we can hope that this time next year at London Card Show, there might be 2 stalls of women's cards, and no doubt that me and you will be racing across the room trying to find that one Arsenal card.
I'm sure we've got enough cards. We can set up our own store.
Yeah, I think they're not going nowhere at the moment. Maybe if I get a bit lucky and hit some Chelsea cards in a break or something, they can go. But my case has got a lovely slot for us women's, and it's it's getting a bit too small. But no, like I say,
yeah, I want more sets, but my bank says no.
I think that is by that, bro. I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I do want to buy that card, and then I'm like, I have to weigh it up. I get a men's card with a similar value on my left hand, and I'm like, oh, might have to sell this one to get that. And most of the time it goes, oh, I have to sell that one, and I can't keep doing it because I have no men's cards left soon because I just keep buying all the women's stuff. But I think we've got to get one prediction off you though before we finish up, and obviously it is the Women's World Cup this week. It's going to be very hard to predict. It's one of them women's. There's always a shock at some point in the women's tournament. Who are you going to go for? As obviously, most people are going to I put everyone out there. People don't know women's football, probably going to say, "Oh, US women's team," which there's a very high chance they are favourites. But if you say your favourites, maybe even an outsider that you fancy to do quite well.
I would say so. I've read somewhere that the bets on USA to win are like 3-1, so they are insane. Yeah. But after watching their match against Wales, I don't think they're going to be as good as everyone. I would hope they're not as good as everyone. Like, just for England's sake. With watching the friendlies, Zambia are definitely a country to look out for. Yeah. Their match against Germany, I think that was one of the best. It was one of the most intense friendlies I think I've watched in a long time. I would obviously like England to win. Or if not, I think I'd like Sweden to be up there just for Blackstenius.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, especially for an Arsenal fan. Obviously, Hurtig, Ilstedt now, our new centre half. And I've got to say one thing. There's another thing that I've seen a lot of people not talking about, and I'm biased, obviously, because there's two Arsenal players, but I do think Australia have a good chance at their home World Cup as well, because if their strike force starts firing, I'm not sure there's many defences that can stop Ford and Kerr.
No, I think Australia are one to look out for. I think I read they've not got past a quarter-final before, but yeah, I think they're definitely up there. But there's a lot of teams that are up there that could do well. I'd like Netherlands to do well for Pullover. I just want any Arsenal players to do well. I'm like, screw everyone else.
Yeah, we're not biased. We're not biased at all. It's just as long as there's an Arsenal player lifting it, that is fine.
Exactly. And I mean, how hard is that? It's not much to ask for, is it? Is it really? But
not at all. Especially that after the Women's World Cup final, it's only like 10 days before the Champions League qualifiers. So we could do some in good form coming back.
Yeah, it will be. I think Alex Morgan said this is going to be the best World Cup ever. I have no doubt it will be. I've had the World Cup FIFA song on repeat. Do it again. I've just had it on and on. I'm ready for it. I'm very, very excited for the World Cup.
But, yeah, no, I think it's going to be a very exciting time. I think it could really, honestly, I think it could be the next step in the evolution of not just of the hobby, but women's football as well. But like we say, Erin, thank you ever so much for joining. No doubt we'd love to have you back on again in the future. Hopefully when there's more women's stuff sets to talk about. Like we say, enjoy collecting and just try not to buy all my cards.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
And now we are joined by a very special guest on the Top Loaded podcast. This is now part 2 of the World Cup special, which has been a joy to bring you. But now, all the way from SheScoresCards is the one and only Tara. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to join you and talk about women's football cards and the World Cup.
I was going to say, talking women's football, if someone would have told me a year ago when I started up the podcast that I'd be doing a women's special, A, I'd be very happy, but B, I'd be thinking, is there anyone going to listen to this? But for people that we actually met at the last London Card Show, and before we move into why you're starting this table up, it was a needle in a haystack at the last London Card Show to try and find any women's cards.
Yeah, I've been to a couple, and you trawl around the tables, and you're lucky if you find one or two on a vendor. They're really hard to find, which is part of the reason why I set SheScoresCards up.
That's the fantastic. And I've got to say, obviously now at the London Card Show, which is coming up in about 11 days' time for when this comes out, you are having the first ever women's only football card and sticker store, which is fantastic. So, congratulations, because it's a brilliant step for the UK hobby. But how comes it come about? Was it a case of you was missing the buying stuff yourself, so you might as well set it up so try and get them other people in the hobby, which people might actually not know it's even out there, the women's hobby at the moment still.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'd met a couple of people at the London Card Show, and the first card show I went to was in Cardiff. And a chap put me in touch with Ben Hatley, who had the Sam Kerr pink auto. It was just when that set had come out.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was so hard to get a hold of the cards. I was just like, why not? You know, the women's game needs to be represented. I want to collect women's cards. At that time, you know, they hadn't exploded onto the scene, that we hadn't won the Euros, and it was really difficult to get hold of anything. It was really mainly the Panini stickers rather than cards. You could get cards of the US players. So some of my first ones were Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, because that's pretty much all that was available. So that first women's chrome set that came out, you then got the players that were playing in the English clubs, and the Lionesses were in there. Yeah. So it was kind of the start for me then. I had collected some men's cards previously, but I wasn't really that invested in it. I like collecting, but you know, I was more of a fan of the women's game, so it was great to then start getting women's cards.
I think the perfect word you used there was collecting, because I really find, and no doubt people who are in the hobby as well listening along to it, the women's section especially, and men's in the UK is a lot collecting more than reinvesting, but there's still a massive portion of buying to sell. The women's one, though, we was laughing joking before, but it does seem like when someone buys a card in the women's one, unless for some reason they're selling their collection, they just don't come up. Like, we're talking now that women's Chrome 21, 22 has been out for good year and a bit now, and you can see the odd 150 here and there, or the odd to 99, but anything gold and less you just don't see. So do you feel like it's going to be, in the long run, people are in at this stage, especially on like the early chromes and other stuff, it's like they're sitting on not a gold mine, so to speak, but these rare items because they just don't come up. It's once they're in someone's collection, they're in there.
I think, you know, if they're doing it for investment, then it's not a bad investment. Like you say, those early cards of players like Leah Williamson, Beth Mead, they're going into people's collections and they're going to stay there. So it's going to be even harder as time goes on, as the game gets more promotion, more exposure. Young girls with that Panini Adrenaline XL set that's come out that is affordable, and they can go into their supermarkets and buy it. But then if they start looking for other things for those players, then it's going to lead them to that first chrome set. And I do think the prices will, can certainly be stable and probably continue to go up.
Yeah, I've been a big collector of them over time. And you get them in the PC, but then how we think that how you're seeing it is, if there was a men's set that come out for the first ever time now, and you've got all of these forerunners of the women's game, especially looking at the Lionesses, which is the best example, likes of Beth Mead, Leah Williamson, Bethany England's in there, Fran Kirby, Millie Bright, to name a few. Lauren James is in there as well. That these are the top echelons of English women's football. Obviously, some of them weren't in the squad that won the Euros, but some of them were. But it's crazy because they're all their first cards, and like you say, if they're not a US women's national team player or played out in the NWSL, or the odd Australian set that comes out for European stuff, like, take away the stickers. These are everyone's first cards, and we're going into a World Cup now. I think a good example is even Rachel Daly, for example, hasn't hardly anything because she was in the NWSL, so she's got stuff like that. But when you're looking at the English stuff, now she plays for Villa, that obviously not in the Champions League, so she won't get anything card. It's crazy that you're getting big time England players who've just got nothing at all. And Russo is another example of leading the line for England at the beginning of the World Cup and literally just got stickers.
Yeah, I kick myself now because I had a Rachel Daly Cityscapes card from that Parkside set, and I sold it. I have no idea why, but now I wish I'd have held on to that one because it was a nice card as well. But Yeah, she's one you're not gonna find her cards around at the moment.
No, it's a funny old. Because I was thinking like Kim Little, for example, Arsenal's captain, played for Scotland, over 100 appearances for Scotland, played at the top of the level for a decade now, and because she was in the first Chrome, but otherwise that it's just stickers. And Scotland didn't participate in every major competition, so she wasn't even in all of them. So it's such a different market, the women's one, and that's what I think perfectly leads into your table at the London Card Show, because like what kind of stuff you're going to have there, because for people who don't know women's football, there's not that much. It's not like, for example, men's where you can have 25 different sets from base all the way up. So what kind of stuff are you going to have?
Yeah, so there's not really that many sets to choose from at the moment. So I'll have lots of the Topps Chrome base, the inserts, the parallels, some graded, some raw. So there'll be a whole mixture, because really that is the key set. They obviously were in the Merlin 98 set this year as well, so we've got some of those, some numbered ones, and just some base. The Panini Best of England set, that's got a lot of the England players in their England kit. You know, Mary Earps, that is her only card at the moment, and she's so popular, but you can't get anything of hers apart from that particular card. So I've got some base of those. I've got a gold out of 49, which I'm sure somebody will snap up. It's a nice card. So yeah, there's a bit of a mixture. I've got some of the Parkside set, if anyone's interested in some of the US players. So a whole mixture.
Yeah, that's what I think is great to see, especially for people who don't know. And if they are, some people are into women's football and don't know about more the American side. The Parkside is a fantastic set, and I would love to get that kind of set for the WSL over here, because it's just a great looking set. They nail it every year, it seems. They bring new ideas and it looks great. It helps that a lot of the US women's national team do play in the States, so you get these lovely cards. But like talking about Chrome, for example, would you recommend people like looking at, especially base and refractors, because in comparison to men's, they actually are still very collectible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that first women's Chrome set, I'm not sure what the print run was, but it's going to be low in comparison to the one that comes out this year. Well, you can already see it. The number of parallels in this year's set that's coming out is it not quite double. So they're cashing in on that. And the print run will probably be at least double for the base and refractors. And it's that rookie logo on the card that's really important, what people want to collect, isn't it? The first card of the players that they love.
Yeah, for context for people listening, especially, I know the Arsenal, like the new Chrome checklist out. So if anyone hasn't seen it, I'll head over to cardboardconnection.com. But like, for example, Arsenal have only got one rookie in the whole set now, whereas in comparison to the last set, near enough everyone was rookies. So the only rookie for us this time is Stina Blackstenius. So having that rookie logo, which everyone chases, especially in the hobby in general, it's so good. You've got near enough all of the big players are rookies in that set. All right, some of them were in a knockout set the year before, so they've got rookies in that. But even then, their first proper release, the first Chrome, I compare it to like the F1 2020. That it was the first main set. It got people in there, and like we said, the highest print run card was to 150. And for a modern day, it's not then it was like 125, it was then 99, then 75, then 50, no, 49, then 25, sorry, 50, 25. It jumps. Not like the modern day Chromes for the men's where it's 300, 280, 260. It's all right, maybe this year's Chrome is going to be a bit more, because I think the highest number is 299, but which is great because there's more people in the hobby. And that's what perfectly leads me into my next question is, 3 months ago when we met for the first time, there was probably a handful of women's collectors in that room. And within the UK, you probably only knew a handful of people. Whereas now, I feel like the community has really started to grow. And it's a community that look after each other. Everyone knows what each other's trying to look for and collect and help each other out.
Yeah, I mean, I only launched SheScoresCards maybe a couple of months ago. It's really new. And when the tables came out for London Card Show, that's when I made that decision that I was going to go for it and kind of set up the name, set up the brand. So there's more people, they're messaging me through Instagram or Facebook because they know that I'm around now. And they're like, oh, have you got this? I need this for my collection. You know, this is the only one I'm missing. Have you got that? And it is growing. You know, my followers started at 3. I think I'm about 210 now, around there. But after the card show, I anticipate that probably doubling once people get to know that you're there. It is definitely growing without a doubt.
I was going to say, obviously now being so close to that, it's a week and a half away from, obviously the Saturday, what you're at the show. How much are you looking forward to? Obviously, apprehensions, no doubt, kicking in that you don't know what to expect, especially your first show, and you're a forerunner for the women's side of it as well. But are you looking forward to being the other side of the table for a change?
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited about it. I don't know what to expect. You know, being the first show, I might take all of my cards and not sell any apart from to you. But you know, I'm hoping that it goes down well. I'm not in this to make money. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm a collector first and foremost. But yeah, if there's people out there that want to buy women's football cards, then I'll have a selection for them to have a look at. It might be their kind of first women's card that they buy at the London Card Show, because I'm there, because they can come and look at them and they didn't even know that they existed. I mean, it's we've got sports and we've got Pokemon. There's a different variety of people that go to the London Card Show. You know, if we spark interest in 1, 2, 10 people at the card show, then that'll be a success for me. I don't really think I've got any more expectations of the show than that.
I think that's brilliant, because all you need to do is draw 1, 2, 10 people, and the snowball effect, they all start talking to people they know, like women foot, and that's how it starts spreading. It's not always the one, it might be that one person who went to the show, but then it's the 5 mates, and then they've got mates. That's how we want to see it grow. But it's crazy to feel like 3.5 months ago, last London Card Show, since then we've had Women's World Cup stickers that launched, which were obviously fantastic. We've had the One England set as well, another brilliant set for men's and women's in youth, which was a brilliant one. And then on the horizon, obviously Adrenaline has come out as well, Adrenaline XL for the World Cup. And on the horizon, we've got Donruss and we've got Women's Card. We've gone from one set, and obviously the Merlins here and there and like team sets. We've gone from one set last year to having like 5 different releases this year. Obviously the World Cup helps a lot, but it's fantastic to see Topps and Panini getting behind women's football and putting stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not good for the bank balance or the budget, but it is good that we've got some choice out there now. And I don't know, I haven't seen a checklist for the Donruss set, but I'm assuming there will be players from some of the nationalities that we would just never have had chance to get cards of. I mean, De Mornay has been, well, she was fantastic for Haiti the other day. She's a superstar, isn't she, in the making? You probably would have never seen one of her cards without that Donruss set. So yeah, it's really good to have more choice. The women's cards have always felt like a little bit of a sideline in the sets, like Merlin 98, and you watch the breakers and the people that are buying into the breaks, and that, you know, they spin the wheel and they get Chelsea, for example, and the card that comes out that's numbered is a women's player, and they're visibly disappointed by it. But I don't think that'll be the case for long. I think the cards are gathering monetary worth, as more people start to collect and want to get hold of those cards. And actually now recently in that select, the FIFA Select, the USA women's spots have been going for ridiculous money, and they're the first ones to sell. You go on and you think, oh, actually I'll buy into this one, and it's too late, because on the pick your team ones, they're gone. That's the first team that's gone.
Yeah, I think it's exactly the same for the Barcelona Chrome that come out, and when they put Kira Walsh rookies in there, obviously Lucy Bronze in there, Shola's in there, Patalas in there, all these big names are in there. And they were at the beginning, I see some breakers where they was just putting Barcelona women's, and it was like £15. It's the biggest no-brainer in history as well, because a Kira Walsh, even a base card, is going to do all right, because it's one of the best midfielders in world football. But even getting the exposure in them sets, which is fantastic, is to show they're active in trying to put the women's cards out there. And that set was the perfect one, having dual autos, men and women's, which I thought was really cool, because there'd be men's collectors actually having women's cards in their collection, and there was big breaks, and you've seen some of these lovely cards pulled. Then, like Inception, for example, they was putting dual autos in that for the women's, and we are going along a good route now. And I think, obviously, we said the Don Ross checklist not out, but that has a recipe to be quite big because obviously they've got agreements with some of the US women's national team players for autographs, but the rest of the world, they've got no autographs for any of the other teams. So that checklist is going to be very exciting for the collectors because who's going to get autos in it? Who's going to be in the checklist? And they have, if they're doing a around the World Cup thing, which they are, obviously potentially the likes of Williamson and Mead might not be in there, but they could be replaced by players like Lauren James, but also Russo's who have not had cards, and it's Ella Toonan's not had much, and like you said, Marriott's not had much. It's promising that there's another company doing it now, and they might go along the lines of maybe some different players, especially at the World Cup. Hopefully every team, even some of the little teams, like we were saying with Haiti, give them 4 or 5 cards, because some of them players in some of these lower nations, in a couple of years' time, when they sign for a big team, people will be running around trying to find their cards.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some of the teams that's their debut World Cup, and I think we all made the assumption that there was going to be some high score lines. You know, England 1-0 against Haiti. That was not my prediction. They've played really well. The gap seems to have closed between some of the European teams and the US, between them and these teams, and they've been physical, they've been strong, committed, and there've been some good games.
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic to have the World Cup. Obviously, this is the World Cup special. We'll talk about the World Cup a little bit. Obviously, we're in mix of the first round of the group stage games, and it's been brilliant to watch, especially for us, people a bit more of an early bird, so to speak. That all right, sometimes I was watching the US women's game, which was about 2 a.m. kickoff, which was great if you're up, or 3 a.m. or whatever it was like that. It's great if you're up, but some of these early games you're waking up to, you might even catch the last half hour of one of them, but waking up and seeing the likes of Netherlands play, it's just great to see because we don't see enough of it. And especially when it's in Europe, you might miss a game because it's 1 and 2 in the afternoon, but waking up, especially on a weekend, you can afford to be out there. It's been a real joy and been fantastic to see the great following in the crowd as well, from the Australian natives, the New Zealand natives, but also the people traveling to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not having any trouble getting up for work at the moment. I'm getting up extra early to watch some extra football, and I'm fortunate enough to work from home. And yeah, I've got dual screens, so one of them may have the football on whilst I'm working, but my boss is fully aware. Yeah, no, it's been really good to get so much coverage. You know, we've got it on ITV and BBC. They seem to be alternating the games. Yeah, I've watched a fair few of them, like you, not all of them. Been surprised that some of the results would have expected to, you know, some of the bigger teams to have had a more comfortable game in their first round, but it's been close. The score lines, you know, France today against Jamaica, 0-0. There's been a lot of 1-0 wins, and I guess for those teams, they've got the job done. They've got the 3 points. Same for England. They'll be quite pleased to get that, but they've looked a bit tentative. They've looked a bit nervous, and those other sides have just come out and given it their all.
I think it's a perfect example because for people who might not know, have a look at the results from the France World Cup, the last one. There was a load of heavy score lines, and it shows you how women's football is developing across the world, not just the big nations, but the so-called the smaller nations as well. It's so much more competitive, the game. You've got players in Haiti, and most of their squad play in France, and obviously now some of them are moving on to Lyon, obviously Champions League level side, that it's bringing the women's game up, and that's what it was crying out for, was competition. You was getting it before where, all right, we're going to beat this team 10-0 probably, and then we might have a tricky game. But now England, you're looking at a group stage of Haiti, China and Denmark, and you're thinking, I think everyone would admit you're probably looking at it thinking, right, Haiti and China, that's easy, and then Denmark could be a bit tricky, but we're probably going to beat them. But now, I think, especially now, you can't take anything for granted in which is absolutely fantastic for watching perspective. And you're more inclined to watch some of these neutral games now as well, that you know it's going to be a tight affair and you don't know what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Australia-Ireland game was great. You would have expected Australia to win that by more than 1-0. But, you know, I know you're a fan of Arsenal, and Katie McCabe had a great game. Yeah, I don't think there's been any shockers yet, scoreline wise, as in a big team losing. Norway didn't perform as you would hope they would. They've got such a fantastic team. On paper, you'd expect them to do really well, but it didn't come together for them. But I guess whilst the score lines have been quite close, the teams you'd expect to win have mostly won, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it's one of the, especially with women's football, it gets normally the results get a bit more, oh, I weren't expecting that when it gets to knockout stages, when you get the bigger countries, as I call them, come up against each other, like when a US might play a Netherlands or someone like that are a decent team as well. That obviously US were going favourites, but you never really quite know. It's like when England played Norway last year, you was expecting it to be a close game, and it actually ended up England getting 8 goals. But it's great to see. And have you got any players so far that you've seen? Obviously, I think a lot of people are going to be mentioning a certain player for Haiti who's literally got stickers, which I've managed to find that I had still not stuck in, which is fantastic. But any other players that you've been looking at thinking, I wouldn't mind actually maybe picking up one of their cards in the long run?
Oh, that's a question. I actually haven't given that any thought. You've properly put me on the spot there.
I was just thinking that myself. I was trying to think myself. I was thinking, but for me, I'm always biased because of Arsenal perspective. And then I was watching what game was I was watching the Australia game. And I was watching some of their players, but then the Ireland players as well. I was so impressed with some of them that I was even some of the Australian ones. I was like, right, I'm gonna have to have a look at the Aussie sets because the Aussie sets are very good looking sets. And I'm like, might have to pick up a few of them just for keepsake, being an Australian set for an Australian players. Obviously, for me, Catley and Ford are the main ones I collect, but it's just so many players that you're going to look at. I think it's like the Men's World Cup that you're going to see and be like, actually, you know what? I'm actually going to look through my stickers that I've got, the spare duplicates. I might actually keep one of them, or long way, I might grade one of them because they keep the moment going, especially like World Cup.
Yeah, there was at the first Cardiff card show that I went to, chap there, I think he's passionate about legends. He had some French stickers of the French players. They were, I don't know, they're maybe 3-4 years old now, but it was a set that only came out in France. And it had Katoto's sticker in there, Wendy Reynard's sticker was in there. And he gave them to me. He didn't want them. He's like, my mum lives in France. Here you go, you can have them. There's about 8 stickers. And so yeah, I'll be holding on to those now. At the time I didn't kind of realize that was their first sticker. But yeah, there's stuff out there, isn't there, in little pockets, maybe things like that was a French only set that you wouldn't necessarily know about.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ones that I found the other day was in the 2016 Olympics in Brazil. They had football stickers in there, and the likes of Rafael Souza, obviously, who was at Arsenal, now moved to the States, but there's some random sets like Olympics and stuff like that. They might put some of the women's stuff in it, and because you don't see much of it, they might not get another card. So trying to track down a card sticker that was only produced in Brazil, only sold in Brazil, and actually not made that much is very tricky, and it's still taking me time to find it. But like we say,
yeah,
that we're hoping now, and this is my last question, is I spoke about it with Erin, who we had on before, but I'm really hoping that soon there'll be a WSL set.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
I mean, that's the next step, I think, in the evolution, especially in this side of the pond, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the Parkside set in America, the WSL. It is getting big now. The only thing is, when you look at the men's EPL set, the majority of those cards just people don't want, do they? You can't even give them away for some of the teams. And I just wonder, some of the, for the likes of maybe Reading or the lesser known clubs that have got lesser known players, those sort of cards, I'm not sure how desirable they're going to be.
Yeah, it's easy with the names that everyone knows, especially your international players, your European players. But it's definitely going to be one that I think is worth monitoring. I think we are getting to that stage now where who would have thought there'd be a retail product sitting on the shelves in super? All right, it might be hard to find. It might be hiding behind the counter somewhere, but they are in there. So who knows what the next 3 to 4 months holds for the women's hobby. And obviously at this podcast, we're always bringing you the latest news. But obviously, just turning back, is there anything else you'd like to say for people who are coming down to the show and thinking about looking at your store or going to be looking at your store?
Well, everyone's welcome. It'll be nice to chat to everybody, chat women's cards. There's no pressure to buy. Just come and have a look. You might see something that takes your fancy. Might be the start of a new collection for you. As I said, I don't have any major expectations, but if you ever get a day to chat about football cards and women's football cards at that, then it's a good day.
Yeah, like we say, all the information is below, but She Scores Cards on Instagram, I 100% recommend dropping a follow as well, because everyone knows that. But I'm just going to put that precursor out there. If anyone's looking for Arsenal cards, there might be a race when the door opens, but I will see you at the table, because there's a certain card that we've got lined up, which I'm not even mentioning to anyone, just in case.
Keep that quiet. I know, you know, Laura, always at the card show. I don't know if you know Laura, so I suspect she'll be there again and coming to have a look as well. There's a few people that I've met at the London Card Show, and then other people that have been messaging me to say they're coming along now. So I know I'll have at least 5 people that will be coming to the stall, but I'm sure there'll be many, many more.
Like we say, we wish you all the best for the upcoming show, obviously in about 10 days' time. But like we say, thank you for putting on a women's table, because no doubt it's going to help that hobby in the UK grow. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring the community to the cards and the cards to the community. So we wish you the best of luck. And well, I'll be seeing you in about 10 days to talk more cards, and hopefully buy some cards.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting me on the podcast. Obviously, this exposure is fantastic for She Scores Cards and for women's cards as well. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I won't sell that card until you get there, I promise.
Absolutely, Pedro, and no doubt it won't be the last I was speaking, because I think it's time that we have a more speech or talk about the women's game in the hobby. And no doubt that there's small, even if it's 5 people listening, as we say, it's 5 more people than before. So brick by brick, we'll hopefully one day build a wall for a community in here. But like we say, thank you for coming on, and hopefully people listening will come over to your table and hopefully buy some, even if they might buy one, but start the conversation of bringing into the collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that has been it for our lovely edition of our Women's World Cup special. Hope everyone out there is enjoying the games like we are, waking up early, going to bed extra late, or even in some cases probably not going to bed at all. But until next week for our London Card Show special, please everyone out there stay safe, buy, sell, trade, and all that good jazz. But most importantly, happy hobbying and good night.
Good night. Thank you.